Today I want to show you the knight and bishop checkmate, and it's going to be a practice for me as well because it's been a while. So I'll explain along the way, and in the end I will try to see how quickly I can get the checkmate. So the first thing to notice is that our knight is under attack, so we need to move it away. Now I also move it away to a square where it can be attacked again, because then we are not making a lot of progress. Now our first goal is to get the king to one side of the board, so either here, 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 or here. And since it's already moving that way, it makes the most sense, and our pieces are here, so let's just try to get it more in that direction. And the first thing to do is usually to get our king closer, because our king is going to shoulder off his king. So let's do that. And we don't really care where he's going as long as we get it. Now our king can't really get closer to his king, so now it's time to use the pieces. And I like that these squares are covered, so I'm just going to make a bishop move. And this is a perfect example of what you're going to come across a lot. And in these positions, you always want to move your bishop here. And the reason is that our king is covering these three squares, and then the bishop will be covering these two. And as you can see, it forces the king to go back. So that's what we do. And as it went there, it's now closest to these two sides, so we want to keep going, keep him going in that, or in those two directions. Doesn't really make a lot of difference here, but I'm gonna move my king closer first, and because he moves his king again, I'm just gonna move my king closer again. And this is actually the square we want our king to be if he goes to the opposite color corner of our bishop. I'm gonna come back to that. So okay. So we've got the king in the corner, and it's the wrong corner because our bishop is a dark squared colored bishop, so we're not going to be able to checkmate the king on that square, but that's okay, but because the first goal is reached, we have him on the back rank. Notice our bishop is also already in a good position because it's covering this square, our king is covering this square, so it's kind of already being forced to move in this direction. And because our bishop and king are doing a good job, we need to bring a knight in. So that's what we do. And here we have two options. The knight is supposed to start on a square where it's covering this square. So I can go here or here. Now, the choice you make is whether or not what square you want to go to really. So let's say you want to go to this corner, the knight goes here, so the closest. If you want the king to go to this corner, you're going to go here with your knight. Now, as I said, we're going to want to bring our king to this corner in this case. So I'm going to bring my knight here. So that's what I do. And the king is now coming here. And you can reach this position actually with the king here or with the king here. If the king is still here on b8, we can just make a waiting move with our bishop, just keep it on this diagonal. Let's say we move it here to force the king to go there. And then we are going to reach the same position as we do now, because our next move is bishop here. And notice this square was covered, so the king was really forced to go there. This king square was covered by our king, so that's okay. And now what you want to remember is what you're going to do with your knight. And our knight's going to make this maneuver. It's called the W because of its shape. And we're not going to make all those moves consecutively, but you just need to remember that your knight only makes those moves. It never goes back unless you make a mistake, and it never goes to any other square. And in this position, we are perfectly fine to go there, because our main goal is the king doesn't, we don't want the king to escape from the back rank, so that's what we do. Now the king is coming here, and now we can't stop the king from escaping here, but in this case that's fine. We don't know if he's going to do that, but still that's fine, and I'm going to show you why. And remember, we can't move our knight here now. That's the continuation of a W, because the king will take. So first we need to bring our king closer. Now the king moves here, and that looks weird because you're going to say, okay, isn't it escaping now? But if you look carefully, I can just continue with the W, and the king doesn't have a lot of squares. And the main reason is our king is covering these two, the knight is covering these two. So as you can see, it's kind of blocked off, but these two squares here are not covered yet. That's where our bishop comes in. So we're gonna bring our bishop all the way to here. And as you can notice now, it looks scary because the king is almost getting out, but our knight is covering these, our bishop is covering these, and our king is covering these. So as you can notice, the king can't really get out of this. And when it gets to this specific square, it's best to make a waiting move. And I like to go here. And okay, the king is going back now. And we can make this even smaller because let me highlight the squares again. We are covering these squares now. And we don't want the king to go back here because then we're back where we started. So what I can actually do is bring my bishop here, because that will be covering those squares, and the king is pushed back to the back rank, and that's what we want. So that's what he does. And he's trying to get back that way because, yeah, we want to mate him on that square, so he's trying to be annoying and go that way. We're just going to continue by moving our king. And notice we have a similar position as when the king was back in the corner. And like I said here, with the waiting move of the bishop, that's what we can do here as well, because our knight is covering that square, bishop is covering that, and the king is covering that, so he will be forced to go there again. And when he does so, we need to cover that square to make him go even further that way, so we just move our bishop here. And this is the point where we continue our W again, so the knight is going here. And okay, this is another situation. So last time when we were here, the king moved that way, so that would be that in this case, and we couldn't move a knight there because then we'll be captured. Well, in this case it moved back, so now we can move a knight there, and that's what we should do, because notice he can't go this way, so he is forced to go more towards the corner, and that's what we want. And after that, notice we can protect our knight. The knight will still be covering that, the king will be covering those squares, so it's going to be forced to go there even more. So that's what we do. And we will continue our journey with our king to here. Now our knight and our king have kind of completed that journey. And one last thing to note is we don't want the king to get out. So now, right now, the knight is covering this, the king is covering this, but this square needs to be covered. So we give this check with our bishop, forcing the king here. And basically the king now only has these two squares to go to back and forth. So we need to get our pieces in position. Now the easiest thing to do, it's not the quickest way, but that's just to get your knight out of the way. And when the king is in the corner, get your bishop to this square. And when he comes back, get your bishop here. The reason is that our bishop is now covering this, the king is covering this. So it still has only these two squares, but now our knight is free to move anywhere, and it doesn't really matter, the king still only has those two squares. And what we were going to want to do with our knight is to get it to this particular square or this square. And that's because for this checkmate, we want our bishop to give the check here, and then our knight to give the checkmate on one of those positions, or the other way around. So depending on where the king is, sometimes you want to check with the knight here or here first, and then checkmate with your bishop afterwards. But in this case, if I look at the tempo, I think we're going to be checkmating with our knight. So I'm going to see how to get there. I can also choose there, but it doesn't really matter. And I see this path, so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to go here, and notice at this position, don't make the mistake of making that move, because the last two moves always need to be checks, because if I were to make that move, the king would be stalemated, and that's not what we want. So we give this check with the bishop first, and then the knight comes in, and this is actually checkmate. So yeah, that's how you do it. Now let's actually see how quickly I can do this. Now I don't think it is timed, but I guess you can see from the video timing. So let's go. Yep, that was it. So yeah, thank you for watching. Bye bye.